Championship predictions might be my favourite time of the week. We've got a full fixture list to look forward to, the weekend still to come, and ultimately North End haven't let me down yet. But guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We are here to go ahead and preview all of the matches which are coming up in the Championship this weekend. Coming up this weekend, we've got a reversal of all the matches that went on over the first weekend of the Championship, so this weekend will be particularly interesting. But without any further ado, let's jump into these. And starting out with Coventry up against Sunderland. If Coventry were to win this one, they take a massive step towards the top 6. 4 points currently separates them and Sunderland. Wasn't the greatest of midweeks for Sunderland. I honestly didn't see that result coming against Rotherham. Sunderland, who have been on a little bit of a roll recently, went to Rotherham in midweek and ultimately lost 2-1. Some nice strikes from outside the box, but ultimately, despite the chances Sunderland created in that one, couldn't get all too much over the line in terms of quality. And we did mention previously, could that be something that could come back to haunt Sunderland with how light they are, maybe in that forward position? But Gelhardt off the mark for them has to be a positive, and it's an interesting game to bounce back in. Coventry themselves are on a decent run at the moment, unbeaten in their last 3 back-to-back wins where they kept clean sheets in both those matches. The reverse fixture on the opening day was a draw between these two, and I think that's the way I'm edging for this one, if I'm honest. Score prediction, going to go for a 1-1er. Don't think there'll be a great deal in that one. Next then to Birmingham up against Luton. Luton could certainly do with getting back to winning ways, 3 without a win now, although I would say that in their last 2 games especially, they have got pretty unlucky to not take more points. Against Preston, I thought they were really good, got in some really good areas and should have buried us in that game. In the end, we got into it, got back into it and managed to salvage a 1-1 draw. And even against Burnley, I thought they put in a decent account for themselves and could have got something from that game. Birmingham just sort of on a little bit of a downward spiral again. 3 consecutive losses. That game in midweek against Norwich just seemed to get away from them, while they did threaten to maybe get back into it in the second half. It wasn't to be in the end, and Norwich's attacking quality proved to be too much for them. For whatever reason, Birmingham always do seem to do a job over on Luton. In recent history especially, they've got a really good record against them, you know, especially thinking back to last season when they battered them in both home and away games. With that being said, I think Luton probably go into this one with that little bit more between their teeth, wanting to get back to winning ways and having that bit more quality. So I'm going to back Luton for a 2-0er, but Birmingham could easily throw a spanner in the works, especially with their record against Luton. After that, to Ashton Gate for Bristol City up against Hull. Bristol City, who are currently on their 2nd longest unbeaten run in the Championship, 8 games unbeaten now. Only Burnley can boast a better record than they can as things stand. It was a good result, I thought, for them last time as well, salvaging that late point away at Sunderland. And going up against the Hull side, who have ever so slightly tailed off over this last week or so. 3 without a win now for this Hull side. Still not conceding a great deal of goals. 2 of their last 3 results have been goalless draws, but hitting the back of the net has been a problem for them. Just 2 goals now scored across their last 4 matches. Against North End, they probably did shade what was quite a scrappy Championship match in the end. I don't think there'll be a great deal in terms of goals being scored in this one, but with the Bristol City unbeaten run at the moment, I think they may just snatch this one, you know. Score prediction, going to go 1-0 Bristol City. Fancy first goal to win that one. Next then to Burnley up against Huddersfield. Burnley, who had that 1-1 draw with Millwall in midweek. Maybe a little bit of a frustrating one, but I certainly don't think that 4 points on the road against Luton and Millwall should be sniffed at. I think that's a decent return, especially looking at Burnley's next upcoming fixtures. I think their 3 games up next up are all against sides who are currently in the relegation zone. So dare I say it, this could be a bit of a chance for Burnley to really go ahead and boost up their goal difference. I know that Huddersfield had that bounce, Neil Warnock's first game in charge and everything like that against Birmingham, but it was against a sort of out of shape Birmingham side, and Burnley have just got a different complexity to them this season, especially at Turf Moor, where they are still yet to lose this season. I know that Burnley haven't been hitting the back of the net maybe as regularly over their last few matches. I think it's just 3 goals scored in their last 3. But with that being said, back at Turf Moor in this one against the Huddersfield side, who will look to make it tight and bitty under Neil Warnock. I just think the quality of Burnley carries them through this game. Score prediction, going to go 3-0 Burnley. Honestly, I feel like that one's a bit of a free hit for Huddersfield. After that, to Norwich up against Cardiff. The gap was narrowed a little bit down at the bottom, with Rotherham picking up that result in midweek, so Cardiff will obviously be on their toes heading to Carrow Road. And I'm really not sure what to make of Norwich at the moment. They've been such a mixed bag since David Wagner's come in. At their best, I think they're capable of being very good, but if they're not hitting those levels, they're also capable of putting in a massively mediocre performance. And I think we've seen both sides of Norwich across these last couple of matches, actually. That game against Wigan really struggled to create any chances of note, but they followed it up with a really quite positive performance in midweek, putting 3 goals past Birmingham. Marcelino Nunes absolutely running the show from that number 10 role, a couple of goals and an assist for him in that game. So Cardiff have got a little bit of a bounce about them recently, but this game for me depends on which version of Norwich shows up. And if the Norwich shows up from midweek, I think they probably do win this game. It's harsh on Cardiff, who have won back-to-back, but I'm going to go 2-0 Norwich in this one, I think. But they've been unreliable recently. Next then, to deep deal for Preston up against Wigan, and I'm just going to go ahead and say I think this is the most obvious goal of straw that we've got coming up this weekend in the Championship. Thinking back to the reverse fixture on the opening day between Preston and Wigan, that one ended goalless, and considering the fortunes of both sides at the moment, since Maloney's been in at Wigan, I think he's made them quite resolute at the back, hard to break down. 3 clean sheets from the 4 games he's been in there. But going forward and scoring goals has been a problem for them as of late. Also, same can be said for Preston, particularly at Deepdale this season. I was looking into some of our underlying metrics before, and I worked out we've actually only scored 4 goals from open play at Deepdale all season, which is absolutely shocking stuff. I don't feel as if there's going to be a great deal of goal-mouth action in this one, and maybe this is a sort of match where first goal does go on to win it, but it was a 0-0 draw for North End last time, and I think I'm edging towards that scoreline again, if I'm honest. Score prediction in this one, I'm going to go for a 0-0 once again. Next then, to QPR up against Blackburn. Blackburn, who have strung together a few results recently, thought they looked quite decent actually in midweek against Blackpool. Some decent passing moves. It was Dolan with the goal in the end, and obviously in the absence of Broton Diaz and Bradley Dack, managed to have enough quality and probably should have scored more goals in that game, if I'm honest. Sober Thomas being a decent creator from the right hand side. But this one is a slightly different game to judge now that QPR have got Gareth Ainsworth in there. Will there or will there not be that new manager bounce? Obviously, Neil Critchley did have a new manager bounce, to be fair. He won his first game as QPR boss, and then from that point, everything seemed to unravel. Gareth Ainsworth will come in with a completely different mindset and sort of tactical approach than Critchley, and whether or not we'll see all of that in this game, that does remain to be seen. For a score prediction in this one, I'm not sure if QPR have got a big enough bounce to beat this Blackburn side with the unbeaten run they're currently on, but I'm going to say they might edge a point with Blackburn missing a few players in the final third. Score prediction there, I'm going to go for a 1-1er. I think we'll be fair there. After that, to Reading up against Blackpool. It wasn't a great showing from Blackpool in midweek. Really struggled to get anything up to their forwards in terms of service, the ball moving through midfield, and I thought that Blackburn were deserved winners in the end and probably should have killed off Blackpool earlier in that game than they did. Next up, away at Reading, a tough bit of a bitty fixture this one I'm expecting here. Reading, who have been actually decent value for money at home so far this season, having only lost 3 matches. They will be looking to bounce back from that disappointing defeat they had last time out against Cardiff, where they really didn't create a great deal, and to be honest, I'm not expecting a spectacular matchup between these two in this one. In that game that Blackpool had in midweek against Blackburn, Jerry Yates went off partway through with an injury which won't help things, but I believe they will have Gary Medine back for this one, so I'm expecting him to be thrown straight back into the fold. Score prediction here feels like another first goal wins, and I think I'm siding with Reading, so I'm going to go 1-0 Reading in this one, and for Paulin to get one over on Blackpool. Sheffield United Watford has come at the perfect point in the season. The Blades having a little bit of a wobble at the moment, going up against the Watford side, who finally got back to winning ways on Monday night. Probably wasn't the most fluid of performances in the end from Watford, but an entertaining match nonetheless, and obviously they do have players in the final third who can just turn it on like that, and in the end against the Baggies they went ahead and did that to secure that 3-2 win. Also, Watford have performed fairly well at times against other sides who are up there in and around the top of the Championship. They got that point against Burnley, which very easily could have been an away win away at Turf Moor, which no side's managed to do so far this season. And with the Blades short of a little bit of confidence at the moment, I definitely think that Watford have the players who could punish them if they're not fully on their game for this one. I'm expecting some goals to be scored, and I think I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw actually. Hard to split those two right now with the confidence that the Blades are in. Next then to Stoke up against Millwall. It was a good result for Stoke in midweek. I definitely think there's something in that midfield partnership with Ben Pearson, Josh Laurent and Will Smallbone playing in front of them. 3 goals against Swansea certainly can't be sniffed at, particularly with how inconsistent Stoke have been. But what I have learnt with Stoke recently is not to read too much into their wins and to go too overboard thinking, oh, this is the changing of the guard, you know, they're going to go on a bit of a run here, because we've had quite a few false dawns from them so far this season, and particularly returning to the home ground where they have struggled so far this season up against a Millwall side who will make it very tough for them in this one. Millwall themselves secured a really good result in midweek. I think anyone taking any points off Burnley in any capacity whatsoever is a win for them really. So great draw for them in midweek. Tom Bradshaw's in fine goal scoring form for Millwall at the moment, and they do have that place in the top 6 to go ahead and protect for this one. Score prediction, I think I'm going to lean with Millwall just because Stoke can be a little bit unpredictable even when they have just won a game. So predicting this one, I'm going to go 2-1 Millwall on the road for that one. And then to the Hawthorns for West Brom up against Middlesbrough. West Brom, who just need to rediscover their spark really and get back into their groove. They did a great job of catching up to the top 6 pack when they started out the season on such a sour note under Steve Bruce, but since they've caught up, they've just sort of regressed back to that point. Just 1 win now from their last 5. Certainly think it sort of coincided with that Palmer injury. They have been significantly more leaky at the back, obviously involved on Monday night in a 5-goal thriller in the end, twice getting back into that game against Watford, but ultimately being on the losing end of it. Doesn't get much easier for them in this one, up against a Middlesbrough side who is one of the most informed sides in the league right now. Middlesbrough, I think, fancy their chances with every game they're going into. Brushed QPR aside in their last outing, putting 3 goals past them. And I think especially with Sheffield United having another tricky game coming up this weekend, Middlesbrough will maybe see this as another opportunity to gain a little bit of ground on them who are in 2nd place at the moment. So score predictions for this one, Middlesbrough, they've won 5 in a row. You know, we saw Burnley winning 10 in a row earlier on in the season. Can Middlesbrough rival that sort of record? I think they see this one off as well, you know. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 2-1 Middlesbrough. Just feel like West Brom and maybe a little bit too leaky to stop them at the moment. And then to round things off for Swansea up against Rotherham. Swansea's problems continuing to pile up under Russell Martin. It was another really disappointing performance in midweek, taking the lead against Stoke, but ultimately shipping goals against a side who have been, you know, quite inconsistent themselves. But nothing's going to plan for them at the moment, and it does feel as if the pressure is mounting on Martin. I certainly think the problems at Swansea go deeper than just him. You know, we spoke about the really bad January transfer window they had, but now more than ever they need to pull some consistent results out of the bag, and it's an interesting one they've got coming up on Monday night up against the Rotherham side, who themselves were on a really bad run of form but finally managed to turn things around. And I for one really didn't see that result coming in midweek, but a couple of really nice strikes from outside the box ended up winning that game against Sunderland. And considering that was sort of their game in hand, the fact that Blackpool lost their game in hand as well, massive booster for Rotherham. But it does still remain to be incredibly close down at the bottom of the Championship. Not many sides have strung together back-to-back wins. Obviously we recently saw Cardiff doing it. Do Rotherham have it in them to go ahead and do so for this one? It's 2 contrasting styles of play, and for whatever reason I just think, you know, going against a form book for this one, it's the sort of match where maybe Swansea pull something out of nowhere. They're conceding goals at an alarming rate at the moment. I do think Rotherham will score in this one, but for whatever reason I just think Swansea could snatch something out of nothing here. So prediction, going to go 2-1 Swansea, but not massively confident on that. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to stay tuned for some more content coming out over these next few weeks, and make sure to get your thoughts down in the comments below. Apart from that guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.